It was a normal Monday morning. The big office building was busy. Employees walked fast, typing on phones, holding files. Everyone wanted to look serious in front of the director. Mr. Armin, the director of the company, walked into the lobby. He wore a black suit and shiny shoes. His face looked proud, as if he was better than everyone. People stood up straight when they saw him. Some smiled nervously. No one wanted to make a mistake in front of him. Near the entrance, an old janitor was mopping the floor. His name was Rafik. He had been working there for 5 years. Quiet, kind, always on time. He cleaned every corner of the building, but nobody really noticed him. He wore old clothes, and his hands were rough from work. As Mr. Armin walked past, he suddenly stopped. His shoe had stepped into some water near the mop. He looked down at the small puddle, then up at Rafik. "You blind or what?" he shouted. "Can't you even see where you're mopping?" Rafik quickly moved back and bowed his head. "Sorry, sir. I will clean it again." But Mr. Armin was not done. He looked around, saw other staff watching, and decided to insult him more. "Maybe you don't understand English," he said loudly. "Or maybe you just don't understand anything." Some of the junior staff laughed. Others looked down, feeling bad but too scared to speak. Rafik stayed quiet. He bent down and wiped the floor again. His hands moved slowly. His face looked calm, but his eyes showed something deeper. Pain, sadness, maybe anger. But he didn't speak. Mr. Armin walked away, still shaking his head. "This is why poor people should not be allowed in big companies," he muttered. A few minutes later, a paper flew out from a folder and landed on the floor. A manager had dropped it without noticing. Everyone kept walking. Rafik picked it up. It was a printed document in a foreign language, something that looked like Russian or Serbian. Most people would have ignored it. But Rafik looked at it carefully. His eyes moved fast over the words. Slowly, his face changed. He didn't say anything. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were calm now. Like he had made a decision. No one noticed. No one cared what the janitor was doing. But something had started to change. Later that day, during lunch, some employees were talking in the cafeteria. "Did you see how the director insulted Rafik?" one said. "Yeah." It felt wrong. But no one dares to speak. "Poor man, he just wants to work. Why humiliate him?" In a corner, Rafik sat alone with his simple lunch. He ate slowly, thinking deeply. In his mind, he went back to a memory. A small classroom in another country. Books, blackboard, students. He was not always a janitor, but now he had a mop, not a pen. Still inside him, something was alive. Something powerful. A voice, a talent, a past, and that piece of paper. It had just reminded him who he really was. Rafik walked home slowly that evening. The streets were busy, but his mind was quiet. In his pocket, he still had the paper he found, the foreign language document that others had ignored. He lived in a small rented room on the top floor of an old building. The walls were thin. The fan made a clicking noise, but it was home, simple, peaceful. He changed his clothes and sat near the window. He took out the paper again and looked at it carefully. The words were in Serbian, a rare language. Rafik read the full document. He read it twice, then again. Each time he became more serious. It was a business contract, a deal between his company and a foreign partner. But there was a mistake in the translation, a big one. One wrong word, and the meaning changed completely. If the company signed this deal, they would lose everything. Rafik felt a chill in his body. He wanted to help. But would they listen? He was just a janitor. He looked at his reflection in the window glass. Old, tired eyes, gray in his beard, a simple man in simple clothes. No one at the office knew anything about his past. They only saw the mop. But once, long ago, he was someone else. 10 years ago. In another country. Rafik was a respected man. He lived in a small town in Bosnia, near the mountains. He worked as a language teacher and sometimes helped with translations in the local government office. He spoke 5 languages: Urdu, English, Arabic, Bosnian, and Serbian. People came to him for help. His students loved him. His wife, Zoya, was a nurse. They had one daughter, Alina. Life was not rich, but it was full of peace. Then one day, everything changed. A political war started. Violence, bombings, fear. Rafik's house was destroyed. Zoya was killed during a hospital attack. His daughter disappeared in a crowd while running for safety. Rafik searched for her for months. In shelters, camps, streets. No sign. His heart broke. His world ended. He left the country. He had no choice. He came to a new city, a new land. No family, no money. Only memories and a passport. No one cared about his degrees. No one asked about his skills. He needed food and shelter. He became a janitor in a company, and for 5 years, he stayed silent. Back to present, Rafik folded the paper and placed it on the table. He opened an old notebook. Inside were pages of translations he had done for practice. It was the only part of his old life he kept alive. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking, should I speak? Will they laugh again? What if I stay quiet and something bad happens to the company? But who would believe a janitor? In the morning, he made a decision. He ironed his clothes, wore his cleanest shirt, took the paper and a fresh translation in hand. At 10 a.m., he waited outside the HR office. People looked at him strangely. "Why is the janitor standing here with papers?" someone whispered. After a long wait, a young intern named Sana noticed him. "Sir, do you need something?" she asked kindly. "I want to speak to someone about this document," he said softly, showing her the file. Sana took the paper, looked at it, and raised her eyebrows. "This is in Serbian." "How do you know what it says?" Rafik gave a small smile. "I used to teach this language. A long time ago." Sana paused. She didn't laugh. She didn't walk away. "Wait here," she said. She went inside the HR room. After 10 minutes, she came back. "You have 5 minutes. Please come in." Rafik stepped into the office slowly, holding the truth in his hands. Rafik entered the HR office holding the paper and his notes. His hands were calm now. His heart was not. 2 men and 1 woman sat at the table. They looked confused. One of them, Mr. Naeem, asked, "Why is the janitor here?" Before Sana could speak, Rafik gently placed the document on the table. "I found this yesterday near the entrance. I read it. There is a mistake. A serious one." Mr. Naeem frowned. "You read Serbian?" Rafik nodded. "Yes. I used to teach this language before I came here." Everyone in the room looked at each other. One man smiled lightly, thinking it was a joke. Rafik opened his notebook. Page by page, he showed the translation he had written overnight. "This line," he pointed, "says that our company agrees to pay the full penalty, even if the foreign company cancels the contract." "That can't be right," said one woman. Rafik looked at her politely. "It is. You can check it with a translator." The room became quiet. Sana stepped forward. "I believe him. He's not guessing. He's confident." Mr. Naeem still didn't look convinced, but he took the paper. "We'll verify it," he said coldly. "You may go now." Rafik nodded. "Thank you for your time." He walked out of the office with slow steps. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in years, he felt like he had done the right thing, not for money, not for praise, but because it was the truth. Later that afternoon, The HR team took the paper to the director, Mr. Arman. He laughed when he heard the story. A janitor? Serbian? What is this? A movie? But Sana insisted. Just double-check it. Please. Mr. Arman rolled his eyes. Fine. Hire a translator for a second opinion, but I'm sure he's just pretending. Next day, the truth comes out, a professional Serbian translator was called to the office. Her name was Ana Markovic. She read the original document line. By line, everyone waited. Finally, she looked up and said, "This is badly translated. This contract will put your company at great risk." She explained the same line Rafik had shown, the one about the penalty clause. It was exactly how he said it. Mr. Arman's face turned red. You mean the janitor was right? Anna nodded. Completely right, and I must say, whoever corrected this is very skilled in the language. There was silence in the room. No one laughed now. Mr. Naim cleared his throat. We need to inform the board. Sana smiled softly. We also need to inform Rafik. Meanwhile, in the basement, Rafik was in the storage room, fixing a broken mop handle. His hands were dirty, but his heart was light. He didn't know that. Upstairs, people were talking about him, this time, with respect. Suddenly, a message came through the building speaker. Mr. Rafik, please come to the boardroom on the 5th floor. Everyone looked surprised. Some stared. Rafik cleaned his hands and took the lift up. He entered the boardroom slowly. All eyes turned to him. Mr. Arman stood up. His voice was firm but not loud this time. Mr. Rafik, we have something to say to you. Rafik stood quietly inside the boardroom. His shirt was simple, his shoes were old, but his eyes were steady. The board members, managers, and even Mr. Arman were sitting around a large wooden table. For the first time, they looked at Rafik not as a janitor, but as someone important. Mr. Arman cleared his throat and spoke. You were right, he said slowly. That document had a dangerous error. You saved this company from a terrible loss. Rafik nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't say, I told you so. He simply said, I just did what I had to do. The room was silent. Mr. Naim, the HR officer, leaned forward. But why didn't you tell us earlier that you know languages? You've been working here for 5 years. Rafik looked down for a moment, then raised his eyes. No one ever asked, he replied. And after losing everything, I didn't feel like showing off. A soft silence fell in the room. Sana, the intern, smiled proudly. She was the first to believe in him. One of the senior board members asked, Can you tell us more about your background? Rafik told them the short version of his story, how he had once been a teacher and translator, how war took away his family, how he had to leave his country, and how he became a janitor just to survive. He didn't cry. He didn't ask for pity. He just shared the truth. Some board members looked down, their eyes filled with guilt. They had seen him every day but never truly looked at him. Mr. Arman looked uncomfortable. This was the same man he had insulted in front of others. The same man he had mocked as uneducated. But now Rafik stood taller than him. Still, Mr. Arman tried to protect his ego. Well, it was lucky you found the paper, he said. We've already sent the correct version to our partners. But the board director, Mr. Qureshi, an elderly man with kind eyes, spoke next. It was not luck, he said. It was honesty. It was courage. He could have stayed silent, but he didn't. Everyone nodded. Mr. Qureshi turned to Rafik. We want to thank you. And more than that, we want to use your skills. Would you be willing to work as our language advisor? Rafik blinked. He didn't expect that. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say yes, Sana said softly, smiling. Rafik looked at them, his voice low but firm. I would be honored. Word spreads. Fast by the next day, everyone in the office had heard the story. The janitor who saved the company, the man who spoke 5 languages, the quiet worker with the loudest lesson. People who used to ignore him now greeted him with respect. Some even asked for advice. He was still the same man, but now the world saw him differently. Rafiq didn't ask for a new uniform or a big office. He just asked for a desk near the HR room and some books to read during breaks. Sana visited often. They talked about languages, books, and life. Mr. Arman kept his distance. He didn't say sorry, but he no longer raised his voice when Rafiq walked by. That, in itself, was a silent apology. A quiet moment. One evening, Rafiq stayed late in the office. He walked past the mop closet and stopped. He looked at the mop that had been his world for 5 years. He didn't hate it. It had kept him alive when life broke him. He touched it gently, then closed the door. He was not leaving it behind, just stepping forward. Rafiq's life had started to change. He now had a small desk on the 3rd floor. No nameplate, no fancy chair, but a desk, a computer, and most importantly, respect. People came to him with documents in foreign languages. He helped them understand contracts, emails, and reports. Some still looked surprised when they saw the janitor behind a desk, but most had accepted the truth. Rafiq wasn't just a cleaner. He was a teacher in disguise, a man with a past no one had seen. But not everyone was happy. Mr. Arman's worry one morning, Mr. Arman stood in his cabin talking on the phone. "What do you mean they want him in the language department? He's not even part of the corporate team," he whispered. There was a pause. "Yes, I know he saved the deal, but this is getting out of hand." He looked through the glass wall. Rafiq was sitting quietly, checking a translation. Arman clenched his jaw. He didn't like being upstaged, especially not by someone he had publicly mocked. He had a reputation to protect. People had started whispering. The janitor corrected the director. Arman couldn't let that story spread further. The file later that week, Arman called a junior staff member named Imran. "I want you to look into this Rafiq," he said. "Find his background. Check if his story is even real." Imran looked unsure. "Sir, everyone says he's honest. He never lied about his past." "I don't care," Arman snapped. "Find something, anything." Imran had no choice. He went to HR and asked for Rafiq's employee file. It was thin. Just a simple form from 5 years ago. No resume, no certificates. Just a copy of his ID and one line under previous job. Teacher, abroad. Imran went to Rafiq quietly. "Sir, I hope you don't mind, but the director asked about your past work. Do you have any proof of your teaching days?" Rafiq nodded. "I have documents, but they are in a box. I never needed them before. Would you be okay showing them, just to avoid trouble?" Rafiq agreed. A box of memories. That evening, Rafiq went home and opened the wooden box he had not touched in years. Inside were his teaching certificate, a few photos of him standing in front of a blackboard, a letter of appreciation from the Bosnian Cultural Institute, and one photo, torn at the corner, of him holding a little girl with curly hair, his daughter. Rafiq stared at the photo for a long time. His hands trembled as he put everything in a folder. The next morning, he handed the documents to HR. The truth was now official. Respect grows, Mr. Qureshi, the board director, saw the documents and smiled. "This man has more experience than half of our staff," he said. Word spread again, this time faster. People who once walked past him without seeing now said, "Good morning, sir. We're lucky to have him. He's a gem." Even clients started asking for him. "Can Mr. Rafiq handle our translations?" they'd say, but one person stayed silent. Mr. Arman. He never praised Rafiq. He never apologized. But deep inside, he knew his insult had exposed his own weakness. He had judged a man by his clothes and lost. One day, a letter arrived. Rafiq was at his desk when Sana brought him a white envelope. "It came from an international agency," she said. "Looks important." Rafiq opened it slowly. It was from the UN Refugee Language Program. They had heard about his story through a local newspaper article. They wanted to invite him as a guest speaker at a language seminar. Rafiq's hands shook slightly. He had lived in silence for years. Now the world wanted to hear his voice. He looked at Sana. "Should I go?" She smiled. "You helped this company. Now it's time to help others." Rafiq stared at the letter again. An invitation from the UN Refugee Language Program. They had read about his story in the local paper. A janitor who once taught languages, who saved a company from disaster, who spoke 5 tongues and lived through war. They didn't just want to meet him. They wanted him to speak at a global seminar. It was hard to believe. Rafiq had lived in the shadows for so long. Now the spotlight was calling him. Back at the office news. "Of the invitation spread like fire. He's going to speak at the UN program." A janitor. Now a guest speaker. He deserves it. Sana brought him tea and sat near his desk. "So, are you going?" Rafiq smiled faintly. "I'm not sure. I've not spoken on a stage in years." "You don't need to perform," she said softly. "Just tell your truth. That's powerful enough." He looked out the window. Birds flew across the sky. Once he had wings, too. Maybe it was time to fly again. Mr. Arman's reaction. In his glass office, Mr. Arman read the news. With tight lips, he had ignored Rafiq, insulted him, tried to bury his past. Now the same man was being celebrated. The story had even appeared in a small online business magazine under the title, "From Mop to Microphone, the Story of Rafiq." Arman's name wasn't in the article, but the message was clear. Never underestimate anyone. He felt small. He shut his laptop angrily. The preparation Rafiq agreed to go. The company gave him 3 days off. The seminar would be held in the capital city. Sana helped him write a short speech. They kept it simple, just like him. He practiced late at night, in front of a mirror, in whispers. He didn't talk much about himself. He talked about dignity, about how talent has no uniform, and how every person carries a story that you cannot see. The day of the seminar. The hall was large, filled with people from different countries, NGO workers, diplomats, teachers, and language experts. Rafiq stood backstage, holding his notes. His hands trembled slightly. He wore a neat shirt and polished shoes. He still looked like a simple man. But today, people saw his light. The host called his name. "Please welcome Mr. Rafiq, a language lover and survivor whose quiet courage inspired many." The audience clapped politely. Rafiq walked to the microphone slowly. He stood still for a moment, then looked at the crowd and smiled gently. "I was once called just a janitor," he began. "And that was true, but that was not the whole truth." He told them about his life, his teaching days, the war, the loss of his family, his job in the company, and the day he found the document. He didn't try to sound like a hero, he just spoke from the heart. When he finished, the room was silent. Then applause erupted. Not polite clapping, but deep, emotional appreciation. People stood. Some even had tears in their eyes. Rafiq bowed his head humbly. A voice from the crowd. After the seminar, people came to shake his hand. An older man stepped forward. "Mr. Rafiq, I think we met once before. In Sarajevo. I was part of a refugee camp there." Rafiq looked closer. The man's face seemed familiar.